We can't say the future without AI. I mean, there's no way around it. 50% of workers now believe AI is going to improve their experience. When I come into the meeting room, I need a way to incorporate my AI with what's going on in the meeting. It's almost a bring your own AI type of a concept. Most of what we do in our day-to-day is going to change significantly.
Hear the latest AV trends and predictions in this episode of Crestron's Smarter Spaces podcast on your preferred podcast platform.
We have this conversation every year because it's new. It's paradigm shifting. It really is, holistically speaking, as a business owner. There are ways to find your bliss in doing this with the tools that are out there and not have to use them all. God, I sound like such a West Coast California guy sometimes.
What a bunch of hippy-dippy baloney.
AI is top of mind for most people in the business world as well as technology, and the AV industry is no different. The AV industry has been actively trying to wrap their arms around it, and our panel of experts on this episode of A State of Control will help you to get more comfortable with AI, understand how to put it to use, understand what are the pros and cons, and give you some tips to get started. All that and more on A State of Control. A State of Control, episode 128, Find Your Bliss. Welcome to A State of Control, an AVNation podcast that highlights the control, programming, and automation aspects of the audiovisual industry. My name is Steve Greenblatt. I'm your host. Thanks for joining us today. So today we are going to talk about everybody's favorite acronym, that is AI. Or if you don't know what that means, then maybe we need to talk, but it refers to artificial intelligence. And before you roll your eyes or think that yet another time to talk about this, we have a unique spin on it. We have some great guests with some valuable insight, and we're going to talk about how it's related to our world and our context of programming and control. So before we get to talk to those great guests, I get to say hi to my partner here at A State of Control. Some people know him as Uncle Richie, but he also goes by Rich Fregosa. How are you, Rich?
I'm doing good, buddy. This is going to be an interesting one, and I'm actually really excited to hear the chats about this and how fortunately, how it's directly relating our industry, which we hear it in the news for everything else. But I think that, having the opportunity for our listeners and watchers to see, well, how does it actually affect me is something I'm excited about. And so, especially on a rainy day here in California, which I was not expecting.
Well, I agree with you and I concur, and I'm excited about these guests that we're going to now introduce, and we're going to have a very lively conversation. I'm sure probably run out of time as we normally do. So our first guest is a frequent guest here on A State of Control. He was last with us on episodes 116 and 117. He actually has a title related to AI, which is the VP of Machine Intelligence at CTI, and he's Dave Hatz. Welcome back, Dave.
Hey, glad to be here. The real question, though, is it AI or is it A1? Just asking, food for thought. So no, excited to be here, guys.
I had somebody say that to me recently, and I laughed very hard. And last but not least, someone who I've gotten to know over the years because we run in a lot of the same circles representing independent programmers. And he is the CTO at PepperDash Technology, Sumanth Rayancha. Welcome, Sumanth.
Thank you, Steve. Excited to be here. It's a topic that I seem to be doing a lot of speaking about and consumes a lot of my internal time.
I'm glad that we've hit on the right thing, and thanks for being with us. So AI, as we said, is a very frequently used buzzword in technology, and the AV industry is no exception. So there's a lot of schools of thought about AI and the impact that it's going to have and what we could expect from it and what it's all about. So I'm excited to get into that, and I'd like to start off by throwing it over to Rich and saying, what do we know of as AI? What is AI, and what's its context in our industry?
Wow. So what do we know of as AI? That's the question that you ask yourself. What do we know? We don't really know what we know, right? You don't know a section of it, right? Which is, it's in such its infancy right now that it's a solution looking for a problem is kind of how I view it first. Which is, it does all these great things. It aggregates. I mean, what is AI? It's an aggregator. Okay. It is constantly assimilating information in a way to present it back in a method that the user can understand based on their level, right? It's if you are 13 years old, you'll enter a prompt one way, and it will respond in a way that you may or may not be able to relate to, and so you try to refine it. If you are a software engineer, you're going to prompt it a different way based on that knowledge set, and it may or may not present information in that way back. The interesting part is that giant pool of information is being filled by the same 13-year-old and software engineer, right? It's agnostic in that sense. It doesn't say, tell me your qualifications before I give you a response. You could put it in the prompt. That's what you learn. But you're dipping the cup into that rushing stream. The difference, though, is that in V1 of any of the, X.GPT or whatever you want to use, or any of the new ones that are out there, it was a trickling stream because the information was starting to creep in because users were starting to creep in and the machines that were accessing it. And as it grows, that stream then becomes a river. Then it becomes a torrent. Then it becomes a waterfall, right? And so as that information comes in, you've still got your little cup. Now the question is, what's the information that you're grabbing coming out of it? Is it better? Is it worse? For me, those are the questions, which is, how is it collectively coming through? Because it's information, and it is free-flowing information. And so for me, where does AI come from? I mean, it is that torrent of information. And AI is a version of distilling it, hopefully, into the cup for what you actually need. Instead, having it be just pure water coming in, and a water and a twig and a bug and a piece of a fish that came along with it, right? You're trying to shake that stuff out. And what we're doing is we're basically taking that cup and we're putting a little strainer in it, and we're saying, okay, great. Now I got the twig and the bug and the fish head sitting over here in the cup that just got collected through. Let me kind of strain out just the stuff that I need from it. And that's where I see AI is. It's that strainer in between that says, here's everything that's sitting out there. Here's hopefully what I'm trying to fill my cup with. Is it like a sieve with giant holes that a bunch of stuff fills through? Or is it, a very fine sieve? So, for me, that's kind of the only way that I've been able to kind of wrap my head around it. And, it's the give me 15 seconds of what you think it is. I'm like, okay, it's that sieve, right? It's you got to distill, because the information is just going to keep going in there no matter what.
Dave, I'll let you jump in on this. I know that you do a lot of focus on AI, both at CTI and in other realms, and your background has been in programming, but it also AI can be used in so many different contexts. What are some recommendations you would give to somebody that is just really getting started with AI?
Well, I think, Rich, you hit on something really important there, that AI on itself it's a solution without a problem. The key, and especially in the context of this discussion for the AV developer, is what are the actual activities where AI can help you either become more effective, become faster, or give you superpowers, give you the ability to do things that you couldn't do before, that weren't practical to do before. So a few examples of how I see it really relevant, very specific to the AV developer. And I'm sure, Sumanth, you have different paths here too. So this is one of those questions I love. The first, think about those API documents. We all read API documents for, everything that we want to control or interface or integrate with, whether it's a device, a platform, authentication models, all those things. Well, how many times do you read that and you spin your head around trying to understand what is the author trying to really get at? How do I actually apply this? Well, I use Claude, I use ChatGPT, and throw an API document at it and ask it to describe it. I don't even open it up and read it myself. I just say, describe this to me. If I'm working in C#, can you give me an example of how to instantiate this library? Can you give me examples of the routine to call this API? Give it a real example. Here's the information I'm trying to get. Can you give me an example of how I would call that? Now, are they going to be perfect? Probably not, but they're quicker than me trying to go through 47 pages and find the right information to get started. So it's a jump start. It gets me going quicker. Understanding code is a big one for me. I love working on someone else's code. That's never been said by a developer on the face of this planet ever. Yet we have to. And we all would love to take the time and rewrite the code, but that's not realistic most of the time. So if you have code and you want to understand it, you want to add documentation into it where there wasn't any, you want to understand or ask for suggestions of where you could augment the addition or the change you're trying to make, a GitHub Copilot is an example. I love using that because I'm rusty on my coding, but to be able to use AI to help augment my knowledge of what I want to accomplish, using the AI to help get me there. The other one, again, I'm starting to use it more and more for coding. Again, I'm not coding every day, but I enjoy coding. And so AI is in the truest sense of software development, it is well adopted. In our industry, from those I talk with, it's really still in its infancy of being adopted. And so I think it's a real opportunity to look at a GitHub Copilot, look at a writer. If you're working in C#, if you're working in Python, if you're working in the common languages, using that to help augment your ability to write code, to document code, to build unit tests around code. A lot of opportunity there. I could go on, but Sumanth, I'm really interested to hear your take on this question.
Yeah, so we within PepperDash jumped on a lot of AI tools kind of early, mostly because we tinker, and so we started trying a bunch of them out. So one of the first was we enabled GitHub Copilot for everybody, and started that sort of early. But as it's gone on, it's given us a number of improvements and workflow improvements. So, for example, when we have somebody that might not be that familiar writing code in C# or Python or a Kubernetes manifest, the Copilot has been able to, GitHub Copilot has helped them immensely. Like you, Dave, I don't really code much day to day anymore. So I can clone a repo and then I'm like, okay, what does this do? But I can highlight a chunk of code and ask Copilot, hey, what does this do? And it will do a good job of describing it out to me. And that applies across the board. Now, with that, I will say have been some interesting unforeseen challenges. So, for example, as we have been building user interfaces in HTML5, some of our devs that are just starting to ramp up on it don't necessarily have the experience with it and know what we use. So they will say, okay, create a control for me that does X, but without providing it the context of, well, we use Bootstrap for CSS, we're using React as our framework, and then we will see a lot of extra code that might not be necessary or something like that. And that's led us to need to start being able to help people with prompting and giving the LLM appropriate context. I will also kind of mention something that's outside of, we kind of jumped right into using Gen AI and GPTs for the purposes of coding. But what I find interesting within our industry is depending on who you're talking to, their context and their viewpoint, they think of AI as something very different. You talk to someone at a DSP manufacturer and they are right to, oh yeah, we have these AI algos that are improving our echo cancellation. And you talk to someone that's working with conferencing and something like that, and it's more about automating production and lots of cameras and things like that. And I'm just kind of flagging that as AI really divides into multiple topics. It's also worth noting that when you talk to a content production shop, they're thinking of it in a completely different context as well.
And the thing I would highlight on that, because I think you're absolutely right. what I really appreciate are the manufacturers, especially, who don't start leading in with talking about AI, though. It's the DSP manufacturers that talk about what their product can do. And it's powered by AI. It's the collaboration companies that talk about the intelligent framing and the meeting recaps and all that. It's the output of what it can do, not the AI that's the focus of it. And so in the same context for software development here, we're still developing that experience within a space or with the technology that we're bringing together. That's not changing. That's the key, I think, here that I think is really important. That's not changing. We are still the experts at creating that experience. We just have new tools to either affect the workflow of how we accomplish that, to do it more effectively, more efficiently, faster, or again, to open up new opportunities and new powers that weren't practical for us to do before. But we're still doing the same thing, and that's not going away.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to point out another one that's outside of the coding aspect, but something I think everybody that's a programmer is familiar with. We spend a lot of time in meetings trying to gather requirements and user requirements and things like that. And we used to be almost entirely dependent on taking notes or record once the meetings became virtual, start recording them. Now that essentially all the meetings are virtual, we can still do the recording, but we enable Zoom AI Companion as often as possible, or the similar features in Teams. And it means that we can go back, quickly search against what we may have missed as a requirement. We get summaries immediately after the meeting. And it's great because it literally breaks down the action items for us. And it means that we don't have to then confer after and say, wait a second, does anyone remember what so-and-so said? Like, did they want that button over here? Was that supposed to be eliminated completely? We essentially have our AI companion get all of those requirements gathered up for us during the meeting.
This is all like really valuable conversation, and I think great examples of how AI provides a benefit to those who are using it. Rich, I'll bring you back in. Is AI a threat to programmers? Because that's what's commonly discussed, and people say, am I going to be replaced by AI?
It's the new no programming required. It's just the new no programming required. There's, what we do, as much as we like to provide to scale, as much as we have companies who are in enterprise solutions and companies who will deploy 10,000 locations or something like that. It's just kind of like the housing market is just kind of like any other industry. You're going to have your macro players, and will the macro players, because of scale, because of efficiency, and because of the tools and everything else, going to find ways to consolidate? Absolutely. That's just the nature of that business model. The majority still are boutique firms. They're still boutique applications. And it comes down to, like we always talk about, is learning how to play within yourself, right? Yeah, you can be on the team with guys who are home run hitters and knocking 50 bombs. But if you're a slap hitter and you're a singles hitter, you can be a really, really good singles hitter and still be successful and not have to hit the bombs and appreciate that you got somebody on that team, right? And that's where I think and a big part of it again, and we have manufacturers who we've dealt with forever and we love them, but they're not our friends. They're not our friends. We are part of their process. But anything that's something outside of their company has to provide a service is not an asset to them. So the marketing pitch is always going to be, how can we minimize our risk for our product? Well, guess who's the biggest risk? That organism that's eating and drinking and breathing and sitting at a table. Why? Because it's sexy. Because I can have this process that technically I don't have to pay or interact with, that could provide an end result. If you're running a business, what are you always trying to do? Minimize risk, focus on your assets, right? That's great. But it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. So in our industry, it is a tool that you use within how you want to attack your market. It's not every company is built to scale to a large level like a municipality or, a global company. It's awesome that there are companies there. But like anything else, are you talking a 1% solution or a 90% solution? Like, what's the makeup of the current, not they're ever going to tell us, but if you sat down with the manufacturer and said, what's your makeup of small companies, sub 5 employees, under $1 million in sales who are working with you? Not necessarily going to give you that information, but I can pretty much guarantee it's a lot more than you think. But that's not sexy. You can't market that. You can't go to a trade show with a big splash and say, ta-da! We've got tools that only 3 dealers can use. But isn't that awesome? Yeah, we forgot that part, right? We don't have press secretaries that are going to say nothing to see here, right? So for me, it's always about temperance, right? I'm a small company by design, by choice, because of the way I want to live my life with my family. Could I grow it? Could I be unrelenting in growing it? I could, but I don't want to. I want to find a happy medium. Are there other individuals who live for growth and scaling and taking over the world? Great. I support that equally fundamentally, and I'm sitting there cheering in your corner. I don't want to do it. I get no enjoyment out of that. And I think that we forget that there are a lot of dealers, a lot of companies who say, I love what I do, but I love my family more. I love my free time more. I love all of these things more. And so how do I fit my business model for balance and not completely going over? Now, the no program required and all of those things, that's an endeavor, right? That's an endeavor. And you've got to commit resources, time, consistency in order to develop it. So could that happen? Yeah. I mean, does the industry change? Is it, I mean, again, all of us, literally everybody on this screen right now, we've all been doing this at least a quarter of a century. We have 100 years between the 4 of us of combined experience. We still basically do what we did when we were sitting in our first training classes on DOS. We just do it differently. But I still have to turn the projector on. I still have to turn a microphone on and off and make it louder and softer. Like, my stuff is still the same, right? I just don't have to solder DB25s anymore, right? Right? I've moved it into a virtual world. So we have this conversation every year because it's new. It's paradigm shifting. Like, I do not minimize in any way how paradigm shifting this is. But God, I sound like such a West Coast California guy sometimes, but it really is, holistically speaking, as a business owner. There are ways to find your bliss in doing this with the tools that are out there and not have to use them all. And aligning yourselves with partners, i.e. manufacturers, and your customer base who feel the same way. I don't have 30,000 conference rooms or huddle spaces that I deploy. I don't have thousands of projects that I just deploy over the course of a year. I'm kind of fortunate that I can kind of work with people that I like, that appreciate me, and that see the value in everything that my company brings. And they don't necessarily are going to sit there and go, how much AI are you using? Are you sure? Right? Because what they care about is, hey, I got a problem. I think you're the best one to solve it. I'm going to pay you to do it. Right?
Yeah.
And so do I worry about it? No. Do I think the market will be different if my son decided to follow in my footsteps? Yeah, it'll be different. But then he's got a choice to make about whether do you play within yourself Are you a slap singles hitter? Or are you a home run hitter? I mean, God, I'm just looking at the engineering brain power of the three of you in front of me. You guys are all brilliant guys. You decided that you wanted to do X. I mean, Steve, you pivoted, right? And you decided, I'm going to attach myself to a broader market. Dave, you joined a larger organization. Why? Because you saw, as an integrator, right? Not as a software house necessarily, but as part of an integrator, a way to attach yourself to a broader market because it made sense. Sumanth the same way, right? I know, when you guys started, there was a, big part of your career was bespoke resi,
Yep,
you guys are really, really, really good at it. Really good at it. And now you've attached yourself to a market that has a different growth path that doesn't negate my path. It's just a different path.
And that's it. That's it, Rich, right there. I mean, when you think about when we started, we were using different tools. We were in DOS and Workshop and Access. And how many times have we changed different tool sets over the years? Because why? We could still do almost everything we needed to today in those old tools. But how much extra time does it take? I mean, forget about the fact that supporting the software and the hardware to do so, but just purely how, the time it takes to do the work has decreased and the capabilities we can do has increased. How many of the developers out there start every project from a blank page? You write every line of code, you connect every symbol, you do every bit of it from scratch every single time. I hope nobody raises their hand. Because we don't. We start from templates. We start with we use modules and plugins.
Based on episode 1, all I do is save as. So I don't know if I appreciate it or I'm offended by it.
But again, and so we don't start from scratch. And so if you think of just AI assisting with code writing, just that piece of it, because I think that's often perceived as the most threatening to developers. We're already not starting from a blank page. And so here, it's a different workflow to code with AI, but you're not starting with a blank page. You're starting with a system that you now give instruction to and can help you write it. But in it, the fact it's writing code for you and you're writing code, you still own the code. You're still responsible for the performance of the code. You're still responsible for the outcome that comes from it. But that's no different than any other tool you've used throughout your career. And so think of AI as a way to accelerate your journey. And again, it's that superpower. It's that cape that lets you do more and be more. And, the point that we made earlier, if it's a language you don't know as well, you have a higher chance of success. You don't have to put as much homework in to become fluent so that you can deliver your customer the solution that they've asked for. Again, you've got an assistant, you've got a help. You're still a necessary piece of that though. Again, that's not going anywhere.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Dave. I see AI at the moment as essentially an accelerator, and it turns a one-man show into a team, and it turns a team into a larger team. That's really what it comes down to. What's interesting is whenever I get asked where something in the industry is going, I actually prefer to look outside of the industry because I think the AV industry tends to shift in the same way the rest of the world does, but can lag a little bit at times. And that actually gives us sort of a crystal ball when we look outside. And as much as everybody's running around talking about, oh my God, AI is going to steal all of our jobs, that might happen eventually. I don't think that's going to happen anywhere near as fast as some people out there are saying it's going to happen. And honestly, in some industries, I think it's been an excuse for people to just simply say, you know what, we don't want to hire as many people at this moment. I've definitely seen this in tech. We're going to say it's AI, but I don't think that's really been the case.
The one thing I will say with the crystal ball, though, I'm going to call it right now. I think this is going to be the nail in the coffin for the proprietary, like full coding IDEs.
Yes.
that, I think this is going to be the final nail that says we as an industry are going to finish the shift to off-the-shelf IDEs, to using Visual Studio and VS Code and the plugins that come with that the rest of the software development world uses already. We're not far from it already, but I do think that this is going to be the nail in the coffin there.
Completely agree.
Again, that doesn't mean that manufacturers aren't going to still have their own IDEs for, WYSIWYG configuration for simplistic sake. But for us who are doing development work, I think this is going to be and should be the push to move out of any of those proprietary environments where possible and to get into these mainstream IDEs so that we can take advantage of this power that is at our disposal if we choose to grab it.
How are you going to afford, because again, living in Silicon Valley, knowing the price of the projects that we normally get involved in outside of the greater tech industry, how are you going to afford those software developers when you're deploying necessarily? Like I said, I get the automated portion of it, but how are you going to afford them? How are you going to afford the maintenance side of it in the physical aspect? Because again, the tech industry deals with very specific endpoints, of which there are tens and hundreds of millions of these endpoints. A computer, a handheld device. Now, as these endpoints start to shift, maybe we do see monitors become, display monitors and projectors become basically glorified laptops with the display on it. We see codecs become glorified pieces of software, which we moving into the soft codec movement. But the question that I always struggle with, and again, just kind of based on the side things that we do and kind of the other industries that we're involved in, is how does let's say a high school student who comes out that doesn't have an engineering degree but is a tradesman coming in, how does a college student who was focused more on English or marketing or the business side of things and found their way accident, like we all did in this industry, are we speaking to the voice of the haves who've already done it while looking to sacrifice the have-nots who we're trying to bring in?
I think the answer becomes you got to be careful not to assume that every bit of code, if you will, that is deployed into a system to make it, realize the experience that's envisioned needs a senior level software developer creating it. I say that. Think about this. I have worked with some phenomenal salespeople over the years. I know we give the salespeople a lot of garbage, but I've worked with some phenomenal salespeople who can really envision what this finished experience is going to be. They don't know all the pieces. They don't know how it comes to fruition, but they can envision and they can share that vision with a customer and get them excited about it. If you can take that skill right there and teach someone what that finished product could be, with the power of AI now, turn that into describing to the LLM that experience that you're trying to achieve. Now, full disclosure, I am glossing over some of the reality of today, but as Joe Pham would say, today's AI is the dumbest AI you will ever use again. So I am taking the position of belief that AI will continue to get better every day. With that, though, if I can describe the outcome I'm trying to achieve to an LLM, I see it as very plausible that you don't need senior software developers doing every bit of, especially the common and the mundane, the repeatable, the 70% that is the same system over and over. I think you can take that kid out of college and make him more productive, or that kid out of high school or out of trade school, and teach him how to have more powers than he ever did before with the power of AI behind him. And then what that does is that turns the senior software developer, all of us, all of those of you who are listening to this, into the expert who can still, just as we always do, take on the more complex areas where the vision is not clear, where, Sumanth, to your point about having to give the guidance to the AI, to the LLM, there is still a lot, and there will be, because we are a bespoke industry, because devices don't work like the manufacturers said they would, but the way the documentation said. Those are all real things. And so there is always a need for those of us with the highest skill, but let us work on the special things. Let us work on the things that still need our talent, our skill, our human ability. Let the AI do the boring, the mundane, and be an amplifier for those who don't have that skill, but with AI can get the outcome. I think it's an opportunity to level us all up in a time when we say we can't find enough talent. All of us are going to age out here over the next couple decades, and there's not the same volume coming behind us. So I actually look at AI as an opportunity for us to keep doing cooler and more amazing stuff, us at the tip of the spear, and empowering a whole nother wave of talent behind us that's not coming in saying, I want to be that super, I don't need to go in and hire senior software developers from the Bay Area. Rich, your original question was, how do we afford it? I don't think we need to afford it, because I think we're bringing in a different type of worker to do a lot of this. Again, Dave's vision, not reflect the opinions necessarily of my employer, CTI, who's the parent company of AVNation. I'm sure is different than all of your guys' opinion. But I see such opportunity in this.
I think I differ a little bit, although I could see us getting to that point. The goal of AI tooling is definitely to democratize things as much as possible. So you take somebody more junior, and you, with that sort of wind behind their back, should be able to get them to perform at a higher level, if you will. I don't think we're quite there yet, but that probably is where things will go. But that applies even if you are that more senior person. It starts to multiply out what you can start doing yourself as well. And also, Rich, to your point, when you're talking about people with different backgrounds and engineering backgrounds and things like that, I have to say, considering that a lot of this is based on prompting, which really means clear written direction, I don't think that's necessarily the strong suit of most developers. And so some of that more clear written direction is going to come out of people with a different background. And I think we're going to see different types of teams that start to come together for that very reason.
I think that's probably a good place for us to wrap this one, but I appreciate really great conversation, and it's only because we have to keep our podcast within a certain time limit that we don't speak for several more hours about this. And so thank you guys so much, and I'm sure we'll be doing a follow-up and having more conversations, especially knowing the evolution of AI. And as Dave said, this is just the starting point, and it's only going to get much more powerful. Thank you guys for being part of this show. Dave Hatz from CTI. How can people get in touch with you, learn more about CTI, or follow you with any of the things that you're working on?
Yeah, so LinkedIn's the best place to find me. Just search for me. I'm on there. One thing I will call out, Sumanth, you hit the nail on the head there, that the ability to communicate to the AI really is the key. And so one of my passion projects, things I do on the side, is I do a video series called Prompt of the Week. I'm doing it sort of in conjunction with a group of people from Microsoft, Jimmy Vaughn, Merrick Horrigan, and a few others. If you want to check it out, aka.ms/prompt of the week. It's intended to be focused more around Copilot, but the skills translate to any AI tool, and they're general. They're typically general skills, general ability. One of the things I often hear people say is, I'm not fluent in AI in any form, whether it's development or just office productivity. And they ask, how do I get started? Well, the best time to start was yesterday, and the next best time to start is today. And so for anyone who hasn't started, this is a great spot to just get started, to open up your thinking to what could I do? What are things that I never thought of? And so again, aka.ms/prompt of the week. It's a 2 to 3 minute every week, every Friday it drops video series. And it's really intended to just get the wheels turning, just give everyone a little comfort of starting so that you can develop into the point where you're going to give GitHub Copilot a try. You're going to start trying to use it with some of your projects and all these other things we've talked about here.
Thanks, Dave. I appreciate that. And I'm sure that our audience will get a lot of value out of it. Sumanth, Rayancha from PepperDash, how can people get in touch with you? First of all, thank you for being part of this, and it's been great having you and look forward to having you back. But how can people follow you, PepperDash, or learn any of the things about any of the things that you're working on?
So first off, thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun. Second, LinkedIn certainly works. You can search for me on there. I'm pretty sure I'm the only person with my name, so it shouldn't be that hard. Second, PepperDash is certainly on there. Also, feel free to email me if anyone's out there and wants to. First initial, last name at pepperdash.com. Happy to kind of chat about whatever else. And I kind of want to touch on or expand on something that Dave was just talking about on people saying that I don't know where to start. And I think there are a lot of people that seem to be getting discouraged and they're saying that type of thing. And I've certainly heard it from people. I will just simply say that there is almost nobody on the planet other than maybe literally half a dozen people that are AI experts. Yes. It is simply too new. There are people that know a little bit more, and then there are people that know a little bit more than them. And it's a relatively easy process. You just need to be curious and start playing. And the fastest way is pick your tool that you want to play with. ChatGPT tends to be the entry point for most people. And just go start giving it prompts and see what you get out.
I would add to that, go on YouTube or Google and search for YouTube videos. 4 hours on a Saturday, you can go from 0 to 80%.
Yep,
in
absolutely.
Just 4 hours. It's not a heavy lift.
I will throw out one other thing. I was part of a industry think tank out at ISE that Byron Terry put together. The group, I believe, is going to be called Next, and there should be some interesting industry-specific announcements coming out of that soon.
Thank you for sharing. Appreciate that, and thank you guys for the tips. I think they'll be very valuable and a great asset for our audience. Rich, yet another great episode, and wow, blown away with some of this information. How can people get in touch with you, keep up with what you're doing, and anything that you wanted to share in closing?
Well, I mean, this show is why we've been doing this for over 10 years. Like episodes like this, right? It's stuff you need to know. It's stuff, but you're scared to ask. Right. I mean, it's just like Dave said, right? If the best day to start, is yesterday, if not the next best day is today. But, a big part of it is that, when you're so caught up in trying to get the job done and getting closeout and sign off, that we've always talked about it, right? In the rush to get things done, we never feel we have enough time to look to what we're going to do. And, these gentlemen just provided those reasons that are attainable and reachable. And I think that's the big thing, right? It sometimes seems like this huge thing, and it's like, take the first step, like we all did, right? Make your hello world. That's kind of where I see it as, right? Like find your hello world of AI, and start there, because you're not going to go ahead and hit the ground running. Find your hello world, and away you go. And it's impressive. I mean, I'm inspired, just hearing what's going on, and like Sumanth said, I mean, it's an opportunity for a democratization of this information if you let it be. And you find ways, because again, if you work for a company or if you own the company, hopefully that's what you're trying to do is raise the level of everybody around you, and improve, just not only their mental but their physical and emotional state of mind while they're doing it. So I'd say, check out these guys, but if you do feel the need to try to talk to me or track me down, you can find the website fregosadesign.com, our little boutique firm, and you can find me on the socials at Fregosa, pretty much any of the newer ones, as I have pretty much turned off the throttle on the other socials that I'm not very fond of, being from California. So I'll leave it at that. But first and foremost, please, find us here on AVNation, here at the State of Control, any of the suite of shows and all of the verticals that we reach, and, all of the other things that the guys piped in on, and please support our sponsors.
Absolutely. My little tip that I could offer is that put some time in and dedicate it's some tinkering time is really, if you spend 5 minutes a day playing with any of these tools that have been discussed, in no time you'll be very comfortable and you'll see the power of it and you'll see what value you can get out of it. So it's that's what I've tasked myself with. So I offer that to everybody else as well. For me, you can reach me at Steve Greenblatt on all the social platforms. My company, Control Concepts, at controlconcepts.net. And one of the things that we do is provide some of the building blocks that programmers need, whether we're integrating with devices or adding functionality. So you could find those at controlconcepts.net. And as Rich said, please check us out on AVNation.tv, either on YouTube in the video version or on the audio version in your favorite podcast player. And you can switch between them. We'd like to get your feedback and we'd like to know what you'd like to hear about. Share your favorite episode. Let us know you're out there. All those things will help us to do more of what we're doing, and also, as Rich said, interact with our guests. All these things are why we do what we do. And until next time, this has been A State of Control,
the network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
Hi, this is Jennifer Goodyear
and Erica Carroll
from the Women in AV podcast, where we are encouraged by the incredible stories of women in AV.
Listen in on fun, empowering conversations as we chat with inspiring women, breaking barriers and creating their own path in the industry.
Check out Women in AV on avnation.tv or wherever you get your podcasts.